Hey listener, this is She Achieved Podcast with me, Albine Bennett. This podcast is about conversations with extraordinary women in Northeast Mississippi and beyond who had the courage to follow their inner calling. Despite the challenges they encountered, whether in business or community, they consistently and relentlessly pursued greatness. Success can take on many forms and looks differently depending on who you ask. But achieving success is something all of us can do. She Achieved is about inspiring you to chase your dreams and aspirations, just like the ladies I've been interviewing. These amazing women are sharing their stories so you can be empowered to achieve your greatness and become who you were created to be. I am so excited to be able to create a bigger impact for you and others, and I hope these stories of She Achieved will be as impactful to you as they are to me. Hey everybody, before we jump into today's podcast, I want to ask you sincerely to leave me a 5-star review. I am working extremely hard to deliver this podcast every 2 weeks. I want to have great guests and really serve you, and it's free. The only thing I ask is that if you're able to leave me a 5-star review on iTunes, I would be incredibly grateful. Thanks so much. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today on the show and being a part of this podcast and being willing to share your story with us. I truly cannot wait for all of our listeners to get to know you a little bit better, but also get to know about your journey to where you are now, because it definitely doesn't happen overnight. And I think your story is one of the most unique stories that I have had the privilege to hearing and knowing and really getting to know you even on a more personal level and really getting to know who you are as a person. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Albin. Appreciate you inviting me.
Well, this is exciting. You are a lady that's really front and center because of your business. So I know you're used to doing things like this, but we're going to really rewind things back a little bit and really start at the beginning. So before we really talk about what you're doing now as a philanthropist, a business owner, an entrepreneur, a mom, a grandmother even.
Yes.
I know that's so much fun. Let's talk about your beginnings and your roots. And so tell our listeners a little bit about what that looks like and what really started all of this and who Lisa really is.
Well, I was born at North Mississippi Medical Center. It was the Tupelo Hospital at the time. And, right here in North Mississippi. Dr. Pigram, people who are from here know Dr. Pigram. He was my mother's doctor, and just a great life story. Verona was my hometown. I went to Verona School till 4th grade. Probably the big impactful thing in my life was my father was killed in a plane accident when I was about 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
And my father was a very successful businessman. He was young. He was 32 when he was killed in that accident. My mother was 26. She was a very young widow, and she was about 2 weeks pregnant at the time.
Are you the oldest child?
I'm the oldest child.
Okay.
Yes. So my brother was born in May after my father was killed in September, and that has a lot to do with shaping my life, I think. You can look at those things in several different ways. I didn't really know my father. I heard stories of him. He was getting in the furniture business. He had a trucking company, and he had a plane because he would fly and repair his trucks that were out on the road out of town somewhere. And he was involved in hatcheries and the chicken business. He trucked for Purnell's Pride, which was a big industry here back in the day. And he had done $1 million, and that was 1959, already that year in September. So he was a very successful businessman. And hearing those stories about him, I felt like I needed to honor his legacy and his memory and be that kind of person. So I think there's some natural abilities sometimes there, but sometimes you can drive yourself where you want to go. So then my mother did not remarry until I was 9, and then I have another brother, that was born at that time. We moved to Tupelo. So I went to Thomas Street School.
Okay.
I went all through high school here. Very much love Tupelo and North Mississippi. Lots of people that I looked up to and admired, from afar. You didn't, girls especially.
Mm-hmm.
You were kind of in the background. And I had a neighbor when we lived in Verona that was a nurse, and I think I have that caring ability, and that just became a natural process for me. So that's it. That's the beginning.
That is truly amazing, Lisa. And so you graduated from Tupelo.
Yes, graduated from Tupelo.
Do you feel comfortable enough talking about what it was like to be a blended family at such an early age and not knowing your father and then having a father figure step into your life
Yes.
and what that was like and how it has shaped and molded you with
Yeah.
having to go through that experience?
Well, I think looking back at it now, we were really kind of three families in one. There was my mother, my brother, and I. That was a family. And then there was my mother and my stepfather, my father, and my little brother, and that was another family. And then we were all together, a family. But it is somewhat stressful. It's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think um, my stepfather had never been married before, and I think that was very hard for him to step into a relationship where you're automatically the father of a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then my mother trying to keep the peace with all elements, and then my little baby brother that that's what I call him today, my little baby brother John.
Oh,
And he was just such a gift to us, and just loved him so. But it is very difficult for a family to completely bond. Sometimes you don't really know what family you belong to,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think that's probably the takeaway from that is, you know, I'm older now, a lot older, and you have a lot more sympathy for the adults in your life that went through those difficult times, also. So you have a little more grace the older you get.
Mm-hmm. So you have already mentioned that nurturing is something that's who you are.
Hmm.
When do you think you realized that in when you were younger? Like how early did that come to you? Because we're about to talk about what profession you chose to
Hmm.
do out of high school, but how early did you know that you were nurturing and really like to care for people?
I think probably in those younger years in Verona, because the people that lived around us were widow women. My mother was a widow woman, and my next door neighbor, Ms. Roberts, she was a widow woman. Ms. Ray, that lived across the street on Highway 45, she was a widow woman. And then Miss Winnie Wharton, she was an old maid and fascinating individual. So I think just being around some of those people, I was able to kind of help them, and I was fascinated with them. And Miss Ray across the street, she was diabetic, so I watched her give herself shots and those type things. And my mother just said I had that kind of helpful personality, but I mean I was a wild child. I was climbing the walls, getting out of the backyard. I was not a calm little sweet child. I was a challenge. So, but I think probably too with my mother. I mean, I don't really remember vividly those years that we were alone, but I know I had to be caring for her too, and expecting, and some of those subconscious things that you just automatically do.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's go through high school. What were you like in high school?
I was in love in high school. And, you know, people think that I have like super confidence, all those things, that you're like some super personality because you're on TV or whatever. Well, let me tell you, I did not feel good about myself. I didn't think that anybody else would ever want me. And I had a great guy that was a boyfriend, but that's all I studied in high school. I was not going to go to college. I was not going to do any of those things. I was going to get married and get out of my home situation and move on and start a life of my own. And mother said that one day I came home. I had been to like a career day or something. I came home and I said, I'm going to the W and I'm going to be a nurse. I don't remember saying that, but she told me that's how that happened.
And then that's what you did.
And that's what I did. Yeah.
So you graduated high school and you went
Yes.
straight to the W.
Went straight to the W.
You studied nursing.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And did you enjoy your time there?
I loved it. I loved the W. I think that female society, you know, males weren't there then. And I think there's something to be said for that. Women can become their own selves and express themselves because when you introduce males into a situation like that, you stifle yourself, step back, you don't develop yourself, I don't think, as readily. And some of the leadership groups that we have going on in North Mississippi right now, and I think that is really very important for those young girls to have time with other young girls and other women to develop themselves and develop self-confidence. And I think that's where I developed some of those skills when I was at the W.
Were you married at the time by then?
No,
Okay.
well, I didn't get married until well my senior year.
Okay.
I was engaged to the person in high school,
Okay.
and we were together until basically my junior year in college.
Okay.
And now I'll tell you this: I got out of nursing for a year. All my friends were cutting paper dolls and fabric swatches and planning menus. They were in the home ec department. They were studying fashion merchandising, all these fun things. And I was dissecting a fetal pig. Uh, you know, my advanced anatomy and physiology, microbiology, very difficult courses that I really had to, you know, really study for. So I did. I got out of nursing for a year because you had to start back in the semester that the fall semester for the second year of nursing school. So I did. I explored other opportunities, and I was just a nurse. I couldn't help myself.
Oh, I love it. I think you were more than just a nurse, but I think you took an opportunity and knew that you wanted to explore other things too, and probably helped you gain some skills that you otherwise maybe wouldn't have had if you didn't
Definitely
take those
so.
opportunities. And that is so interesting. So then you went into nursing, and how long did you work as a nurse?
Well, one thing that I did leave out, my senior job was working at North Mississippi Medical Center,
Okay.
and that's why I feel like they raised me. I worked in the information department with a group of ladies, and that was my after school. Well, I left at noon, and I worked, you know, that afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
They raised the money from United Way, sent me to nursing school.
Oh,
So I have a
wow.
very strong connection with North Mississippi Medical Center.
That That's amazing, Lisa.
Yeah.
And what was the selection process for that? Was that like a scholarship
It was
through
a
United
scholarship.
Way?
It was a scholarship program from the hospital that was funded through United Way. I was in the Medical Explorers group, and Dottie Wilson, Dottie Enlow, was also a selected scholarship recipient, and we roomed together our first semester
Oh,
at the
how
W.
neat.
And I was getting my BS degree, which was unheard of at the time. Usually, an RN, you went 2 years, you got that 2 year associate's degree, and you became an RN. But the more advanced classes, administrative type classes, then that was your BS. You did the 2 years of prerequisite stuff, and then you didn't really get into the nursing program until that junior year.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very neat. That
Yeah.
didn't even realize they did scholarships like that, and
Yeah,
it's been
back in the
around.
day. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
1975.
what a testament. Well, the medical center has been really one of the pillars in our community, so
Yes.
it makes sense that they were always revolutionary in their support for the
Mm-hmm.
community because they were truly built by the community.
Right.
And so that's a very unique story all within itself, but that is so neat
Yeah.
that they had invested in you. when you were looking to go to school, and that
Mhm.
was the opportunity that really segued you into pursuing what you wanted to
Mhm.
do at the time. Very, very
And
neat.
then I had to commit to come back here a year.
Okay, so that was that
Yeah.
was the hook too,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
they would help you, provide an education for you, and you
Right.
would have to come back and give back. And so
Mhm.
did you?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. I ended up working in intensive care in Columbus at GTR. I worked coronary care and surgical intensive care. Very, very stressful. I learned a lot during that time. And I had a baby during that time. Well, Jim and I married in 1979, and Jay was born in fall of 1980. And that changes your life.
Mhm.
So there came the opportunity for me to be able to work at the health department a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 job. So I got out of the hospital situation and got into um, the the wonderful world of public health. Yeah.
And the administrative side. So you wouldn't have to, I guess it was fitting because you just had a baby. So you wanted something that was probably a little bit more flexible, that worked with your schedule and you
Yeah.
being able to tend to your children. And you were a
Yeah.
growing family, you were
Yeah.
a new family. So you took that opportunity.
Well, I
Mhm.
think one of the most important things in my work at the health department was I saw the role of the nurse practitioner. Those
Mm.
nurses had those advanced degrees, their master's degree, and they had an expanded role in healthcare. And I became very interested in that. And so that is when I went back to school, got my master's, and got my master's as a family nurse practitioner. Unheard of role at the time. It was only used when doctors weren't, you know, used in that public health setting, especially. And it was a pioneering opportunity.
Oh, wow.
We went before the legislature. At that time, we were looked at as very, in very, very bad light.
Mm.
Um, it was going to be an infringement on physicians' care. There was a lot of fear about that role. And so we were able to lobby and work through some of those things. And getting my master's, though, led me to be able to become a teacher. So,
So we're already seeing the transition in your story here. So you already
mhm.
got to do a little bit of lobbying, politicking, getting into the state legislature and the importance of having laws that
Yeah,
allow you to do things or prohibit those that shouldn't be done.
right.
But a lot of times we're always trying to reverse the law or make it a little bit better so that
Hmm.
it's accessible, or whatever we're passionate about is accessible to those that would want to do it in the future. And did you ever work as a nurse practitioner once you received your degree? And
I did just a little bit,
okay,
a
okay,
part-time job
gotcha.
in
And
in like a clinic.
okay,
But I think that is when I really learned how important politics really are. It really rules the world, and being able to know what is needed out there, in your opinion, being able to go forward with that, explain it, have influence on some of those decision making. Uh, Everybody has the opportunity to lobby for the things that are important to them. And you think it's this far off um, job that you couldn't do. Everybody has a voice, and everybody can put their beliefs out there, and you can make a difference.
so that led you into your next journey, which was teaching. So tell us about
Yes.
that.
Well, as part of my opportunity to pay back the hospital, they needed nurses. And so I was so flattered that ICC called me and offered me a job. They needed nursing instructors. And so I was probably the youngest nursing professor at the school because I was like 23 at the time.
Oh, wow.
So I was teaching a lot of people that were older than I was. But I loved it. I loved to teach. Um, you have to have patience, but in the nursing world, now that's a scary thing too. You have students on the floor with real live people, so that is a very, very, very stressful job.
Lisa, how long did you teach?
I taught till 1986 because
Okay.
we started a ladies and children's clothing business. The purpose of it was to send our children to school. because during that time, one of my nursing friends talked me into having another baby. So, so I was going to have an only child,
Uh,
but she said, "No, you need to have another baby." So then Mary Frances was born. Jay was first, and then 3 years later, Mary Frances came along. And
well, and girls are more expensive anyways with
that's
clothing, right?
that's right. That's right. Jim
So,
had a nightclub. My grandmother thought Tuesdays was a ladies' clothing store down in Columbus, but it was a nightclub. Anyway, it was a college town. It was a really happening place, but it was on River Hill, and the people from Harvey's wanted to buy that location. And so Jim had gotten out of the business, but his partner still owed some money, and they could get us in the children's clothing business, buying end of season goods. And what I didn't tell you, when I was in nursing school, I worked for Reed's Children's Shop in Columbus. So I had a love for that too. I'm My husband says I'm easily bored. So that's why I do so many different things. And there may be some truth to that. But that was that was so much fun. We started the Velveteen Rabbit. I still taught nursing school because that's one thing that's very important. Don't jump out into anything. Don't leave your paying job to go off on a tangent to do something that you don't know if it's going to work or not. So, anyway, that's how that happened.
that's really good advice. And how long did you do that as your side gig, as we would call it now?
Um, Probably about 13 years. Uh-huh. It was,
Wow.
yeah, in 97 we ended up closing the Velveteen Rabbit.
So Velveteen Rabbit was not your full time. You were still teaching and raising two children and taking care of the household.
For a little while. No, I did not. I've
Uh,
never taken care of the household. That needs to be something everybody understands. There is no such thing as a superwoman.
Mhm.
Something will fall away. Society tells you can have it all, but you cannot. In real life, you're going to have to make adjustments and sacrifices as you go along because you will drive yourself crazy trying to be the perfect everything because there is no such thing. So let yourself off the hook.
That's really good advice, Lisa. I think
Yeah.
more women especially need to hear that. I think men have the same pressures, but as
Yeah.
women, we tend to have a little bit more pressures because we are the caretakers and nurturers of our
Mm-hmm.
families, whether that's with children or parents or even our community in some sense,
That's right.
whatever that looks like. So that's so important. Okay, so you had that is amazing. I don't think I knew that, so I learned something new, and
Yeah.
that's so interesting. And I love your advice for sure. So you closed Velveteen Rabbit after having so
We
much fun
did.
with the clothing and the children. So talk to us about that transition, your decision to do that, and what you moved into next.
That was my identity.
Mm.
Everybody knew me for that. I was already being asked to serve on boards, a hospital board for one thing. I think I may be about the only nurse that's well at that time that had served on the hospital board. Great opportunity there, loved it. Then my involvement with CDF began during that time because it was unusual for a woman to be a business owner. So that was
Let's talk a little bit more about that.
okay.
What was that like? Because you were a trailblazer in many ways at that time, and even before you got to opening your own business. But during this time where it was really unusual for a female to
Right.
have all of these roles or titles, and you were able to be at the table, what was that like?
It's terrifying. And the one thing that you talk about the regrets that you have, I'm going to tell you the biggest liar that you come in contact with is yourself. Your mind, your brain will tell you, I so hate that wasn't able in my own mind to take advantage of the many opportunities that I had because I was afraid and didn't feel worthy of these different things. Or, everybody was smarter than me. Everybody was, better equipped than I was. Uh, just be who you are and enjoy life. I missed opportunities because I pulled back and was very quiet and shy in many endeavors because, I called them all the Godfathers. It was me and the Godfathers. And I mean, all these people that I had looked up to all my life, then I was coming in association with them, and it was terrifying. I did not feel qualified.
Mhm.
So it, just enjoy where you are, take advantage of the opportunities that you have, and find another person that is in a similar
Mm.
circumstance with you. I didn't have a lot of other women that were um, involved in some of the boards and things that I served on early on. So I just stayed to myself.
So, so what was that like? I'm sure it was lonely, and um, let's dig a little deeper on that. I'm
Okay.
just curious because the road that you have paved and what you have done in this community has allowed other women to have those same
We have
opportunities.
so
So many
many
amazing female leaders on our community boards and our corporate boards that are leading the way and kind of leading the charge. But at the time, it was just you. And like you said, you didn't really have other ladies who were doing similar things. So who did you lean into, or what were some of the things that you did to kind of maybe help you, if there were any, or did you just like trudge through it and say, I'm just going to do it because this is something that's my calling and I want to do it?
Well, no, I didn't feel like it was my calling. I thought I got these opportunities. I'll never forget Grace Clark called me about serving on the hospital board, and I thought, oh me, I'm not qualified for this, but I did accept that opportunity, and it was a great opportunity. But you know what? North Mississippi and Tupelo is a very unique community because I think that the leaders were looking to involve more young people, and I know that is true today because I'm sitting on those positions of nomination and all. We're looking for younger people, those people that want to be involved and make a difference. And yes, we are looking for female, male, minorities, all different types of people to bring all the best ideas to the table. And I know that that is a um, planned effort that we really want to go forward with.
Absolutely. That's very intentional and it's curated.
Right.
And that's something that our community has been very, very intentional about
Intentional
doing.
is exactly right.
It doesn't happen by happenstance or by accident.
Yeah,
It is other leaders bringing up the younger generations behind them
right,
and cultivating what that looks like,
right.
and really being encouraging,
Yeah.
and um, we're I'm personally thankful that you had all of those opportunities. And frankly, if you wouldn't have done a great job, being at those tables and bringing what you have to give to
I
the
did not have
table.
the
And
confidence
okay.
to do that at the time. As a 30-something-year-old, I felt very intimidated.
Mm.
And I mean, you have to think of the difference in the
Hmm.
time. I mean, I've got lady friends that are 10 years older than I am, and the opportunities that they had are different. I mean, I had more opportunities, and I certainly know that you have more opportunities now. Generational change does
Hmm.
happen.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it's that don't be thinking, no, she was out there. No, I
So you were
wasn't.
still building yourself. Well, I just know you as who you are today, and I know you have this capability to put things in a different perspective for people, and you have a way to really bring people together and bring ideas together. And so it's very hard for me to like envision you in another sense, but I guess that journey is what prepared you and got you where you're at, and really have allowed you to flourish in those skills. Because if that's something you didn't have, it's difficult for me to imagine you any other way, I guess. So apologies there.
Well, I think the things that I worked on, I was passionate about. Like
Hmm.
Sanctuary,
Hmm.
Mr. Felix Black, Mr. General Jim Ingram. I mean, not having a father too really
Hmm.
has a different perspective on a female who does not have that influence in your life
Hmm.
much. And I remember encouraging things. I remember teachers that were encouraging. Miss Joyce Johnson, that is, still today encouraging young people all along. Teachers make a big difference in your life. Some of those guys that I was involved with, very encouraging in life, and I'm so thankful for those opportunities. But Sanctuary was one thing that I was very involved in. I believed in because I had experienced the care with my stepfather, and then being the nurse. we would never leave anybody alone uh, to birth a baby. We should never leave anybody alone for their last moments or their last days, because that is birthing into another realm of life. And I think that is very important. So I was very passionate about that. And I, I think that's where you have to find your passion, what you're willing to commit to, and why it's important to you. That's my driver.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is perfect, really, in every sense, because that will drive our decision making,
It
right?
does.
And develops into next steps and develops into things that we maybe wouldn't even consider
Right.
otherwise, right?
Right.
Um, so you're selling Velveteen Rabbit. What's next? What's happening?
Okay, I took like 5 years off, and I did the
Okay.
hardest work of my entire life.
Okay.
I worked on tons of boards, tons of different things, Boys and Girls Club. Uh, I I took working nonstop at Velveteen Rabbit to working nonstop in the community, because I was not staying home and being a good mother. I was not, I was just busy. I just was constantly busy. And let me tell you, when you work with a lot of volunteers, they do not have to do what you tell them to do. So
That's right.
you know about that, don't you,
I
Albin?
do. I do.
So that is some of the hardest work that you'll ever do,
Mhm.
working in volunteer situations, especially if you want excellence in whatever it is that you're doing. But that was great training ground. So
So, what are some of the stories that stick out during that time? That was you really taking the plunge and doing community work full time
full
for
time.
the organizations that you mentioned and others. So, anything stick out during those times when you were just getting to know about the community? Any surprises or things that maybe ignited your passion even more so?
Well, I think that I really knew about the things in the community and all, because when I even had the store, I was involved in a lot of different things. But I think like starting something from scratch and being able to like sanctuary, being able to see that begin as just a dream and a few people
Mm-hmm.
coming together to what it is today and how many lives it's affected, there could not be more meaningful work than that. But coming up with um, Celebration Village, I was the first chair of that, and that was my dream for it to be the way that we were able to pay for the care, because we knew that that sanctuary was never going to be a standalone profitable business. We had to have the community involved. We had to have giving to be able to keep the doors open. So but then getting all those volunteers together to do that, BM Cleveland, oh, I mean, he has invested in so many nonprofits. We had steak and burger dinners with Boys and Girls. I could just go on and on and on. But I think figuring out who you need to have working in different areas, not trying to do it all yourself, trusting your people to do what they're asked to do, and moving out, let them handle their part of the business and their division, and then you just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Everybody came through. So
Mm, I love
that's
that. So, after your 5 years in the community, full time community work, what are your next steps?
before Celebration Village, I was called and asked to do the closing for Hancock Furniture. Family had asked me to help, and I got down here and got involved with the store, and I didn't had no intentions of being here today. I was just helping some friends out, and they were going to pay me for doing what I did. But what happened was I got very interested in it. I started a process. I came up with a going out of business plan, and we ended up doing that. But I said I can't do it until after November the 1st, because that's when we're having Celebration Village, and then I'll immediately come and we'll start the closing. And during the closing, I saw what a great business this was. And I went to Mrs. Hancock, and I told her, I said, Miss Hancock, I think that we could do really well with this, and we could, invest the money in missions work, which she was very, very involved in. But she told me right off the bat, no, that LD had wanted it sold or closed. And so we did. We sold every piece of everything that was in Hancock's. And during that time, Jim and I became very interested in what a great business this could be.
So that was the beginning of Room to Room.
That was the beginning of Room to Room. We sold everything out of all three buildings, and closed everything out and started up from scratch.
Amazing.
Terrifying. Sounded like, oh, that'll be fun. And then you get into it, and Jim and I believe in living debt free, and we were debt free. And then this, it was, I mean, the negative talk in my head was so terrifying. I was convinced that we were going to lose everything that we had. I'd have to go home and live with my mother. I mean, I think back on this now, I think how ridiculous this was. The first thing that Jim and I did, we came together down in this business, back at that time on the corner over here, we got together and we prayed together. And there was something, the prayer of Jabez, oh Father, that you would bless us indeed. We prayed that on that corner in the very center of this business. And the Lord has been more than faithful, more than I could ever hope or dreamed to have blessed us. And I pray that we have been a blessing to families, to our community, to our employees, because we are blessed beyond my wildest dreams and thoughts. So that's the story of how it all came about.
That is so neat, and I know faith is really important to you.
Very much so.
Through your entire journey, what role has your faith played into you overcoming some of the obstacles and challenges, and even the negative self-talk that you have mentioned a couple of times during our conversation now? Do you mind sharing just a few thoughts on that and your faith?
My faith is who I am, and drives what I do and my life, because I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit speaks to me. I know that sounds crazy to some people. It drives what I do. End of life care is my calling, and I'm taken to homes and hospitals, and I get to see how God works in just amazing ways, and I just trust Him to guide me along the way. And I think that's what sometimes people think. Oh, you've had this plan all along with these things. You can tell from my story, there was no plan. There were opportunities that arose that when you feel led by the Spirit, you have the opportunity to take the next step. One of those verses about your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Learning early on that is only enough to take one step at a time. You don't get a halogen light to show you what everything's going to be like all out there. You can only see enough to take that one step. Just keeping one step at a time, and that is what has kind of led where I am today. Who knows what's next? I don't know. A great business, love this. Wonderful people that really run it for me. I'm just kind of a sideline over here. But that's my story.
You recently celebrated 20 years in this business.
That's right.
You have a lot of accolades, a lot of accomplishment, a lot of things you have done for our community and invested back. You said you never know what's next, but is there a special project on the horizon for you or the business, or anything that you're hoping to accomplish? Because you've already done so much. I know you're always open to opportunities, but I'm just curious if there's anything brewing.
The only thing and I talk about it, I've written the goal down, but I haven't done it. I've always wanted to write a children's book about this little crazy bird that I raised, and just the story of love. Invest in love into like a little animal, whether it's a child, whatever it is. I haven't done it, Albin.
Well, but I know you will. You have done a lot of side projects, and if I've learned anything of having the opportunity to be around you for a short amount of time, is that it's like what you just said, is sometimes taking one step at a time, trying things, not being afraid to follow your
Yeah.
gut, and really just going after it. Because what's the worst that could happen? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
In reality, really, we have regrets or things that we wish we would have done, and then we look back, and what's a life full of regrets? Well, it's
Right.
not a very well-lived life, right?
No.
So thank you for sharing that. I think you will accomplish that. That's pretty neat. So let's switch gears just a little bit. Now that we know your story, and thank you so much for sharing that, I think that alone speaks volumes that you don't have to be in a box. You have to really um, follow your inner voice, take the opportunities that you're given, even if you have negative self-talk, don't allow other people to, and I guess if anything, it speaks volumes of people seeing something in yourself that you didn't see in yourself at the time of those opportunities.
Right.
I know our listeners could relate to that, and I know it definitely speaks to me because I have had the privilege of having people that are like, hey, that either say something or a
Mm-hmm.
compliment or provide an opportunity that I don't feel like I'm deserving of or competent enough to do. But a lot of times those are the people and the small sparks of encouragement that we need to be able to take those next steps,
That's
and having the
exactly right.
courage to do so, right?
That is exactly right, Albin.
So what advice would you give to a lady who is maybe still unsure of, maybe she's in the career she doesn't enjoy, or she's thinking about a business and maybe has an opportunity, or just wants to really really do it? What advice would you give?
Well, in my world, praying about it, watching for those signs that a go or a no go. I think that is how I've kind of functioned with that. Have other friends that you can talk to about it. What's their opinion? A lot of times people will be very negative on things, but if I could recommend a book that really did a lot for me, Joyce Myers. It's called The Battlefield of the Mind. That is a eye-opening book for me because that is where those battles occur. Whether she is looking to start a business, you know, enhance what she's doing, um, don't let your mind tell you you cannot do it because that is a lie. So the battlefield of the mind is where the rubber hits the road. Just and don't give up your day job. You know,
I love that.
don't give up your day job. Develop something slow and steady, because success does not come overnight, or whatever you call success. Being able to pay your bills is what I consider success.
And having some extra to do some fun stuff.
That is real success. But those things I think are what, if you're looking at doing something different, take a, like I say, that little one step at a time toward that.
That is so good. It's kind of like what you feed, what comes in must come out.
Yep.
And it's like the subliminal mind is really a real thing. And if you
It
do
is
studies
very
on
much
it,
so.
it's what you put in is what you're going to get out. And if you really want to change your mindset and you want to do better, or there's things that you're focusing on, you should always put in the good
That's
to
right.
get it back out, because it really does influence who we are and our decision making and just our day-to-day lives in general. So thank
Agree
you
with
for
that.
sharing
Well,
that.
I'm so thankful for all the people that have invested in me and loved me and cared for me, and the relationships that I've been able to develop in the community, but most of all in my home. My husband has supported me. I said, honey, I wouldn't be married to me for nothing, because you don't ever know what I'm going to be doing or crazy. And he's the stable force that is the anchor to everything that I really am. And I'm so thankful for him and my children and my grandchildren, because that family and that life together is really the essence of true success. Being able to enjoy and love one another. I think those are the important things.
Let's just briefly touch on your partnership with your husband of being business owners
Oh,
together.
yeah.
So before this business, you ran your own business or you did your own thing, you had your own career, and then Room to Room was the opportunity for both of you to come together. So what has that been like for
This is something that I learned too. Um, I spent a lot of my time trying to change him and get him to be like me. He tried to spend his time straightening me out, getting me organized, getting me this and that, like he was. But you know what I figured out? Together, we made a really great human being because the skills that I had were totally different from the skills that he had. And if it wasn't for him, I probably would be in the penitentiary for tax lack of payment. And he has those skills. He has those accounting skills. I have more of the people skills. And together we were able to really do some great things together. But you have to learn to appreciate the other's gift and personality and not try to change them. Just enjoy them for who they are. Because he kind of did his thing, I do my thing, and together it makes a good business. He's kind of retired now, and Miss Terry Stewart has kind of stepped into some of the things that he did, but he's still around to keep us straight.
That's awesome. I love it. What a great partnership. So I've mentioned this before, and I know we have talked about it before, like the Strength Finder and
Yes.
team building is so essential. You were fortunate enough to have that in your partner who helped you succeed in y'all's business. But it's so also critically important in building those teams with different skill sets and bringing them all to
That's
the
right.
table in order to accomplish all of the things that you want to accomplish. So, Lisa, if
Yes.
you could tell one thing to your younger self, what advice would you give?
Don't listen to negative self-talk that is going on in your head. Take opportunities to be a lifelong learner. Keep learning no matter how old you are. Read, enjoy being around like people, so you can accomplish more things in life in a group than you can as just a solitary individual. So that is what I would tell myself. Take advantage of opportunities. Don't miss a friendship. You can never have too many friends because it's the journey. One other thing that I had to learn later on too is I've got a group of girlfriends. There are 10 in that group. I've got many different groups, but this group, Monday lunch, we have lunch every Monday, and I was getting so busy I wasn't going, and I realized I was going to be in the nursing home by myself, and I wouldn't have anybody to play cards with. So take time for friendships and enjoy the road because work is going to be there forever, but take advantage of enjoying life.
Lisa, thank you. This has
Thank you,
been a
Albie.
privilege and an honor to have this opportunity and allow you to tell your story to our listeners. So, thank you so much for being here.
Well, I hope it'll help somebody else along the journey because that's what life is about, helping one another.
That's right. Thanks so much,
Thank
Lisa.
you. Appreciate it, Albin.